बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। Devcom-Pakistan डेवलपमेंट कम्युनिकेशंस नेटवर्क के बिहाफ पर मैं हूं मुनीर अहमद और आप तमाम अहबाब को खुशामदीद कहता हूं। I welcome you today's webinar, and today's webinar is very important as such that we are suffering energy crisis for long, but we don't have sustainable models or sustainable projects to meet the needs of the people. And a couple of days back, Senator Mushahid Hussain Sahab, who is chairman Pakistan-China Institute, and they launched a very comprehensive, inclusive, and participatory platform, Green CPEC Alliance. And that is another wonderful idea that after several years, we come to a very productive and very meaningful platform where all the stakeholders will be getting together, right from China to Pakistan, and those who are other interested in implementation of the CPEC initiatives. And meanwhile, they also discussed green energy projects as well, and making the projects more cleaner. And of course, that is very pertinent. And first of all, I'm really thankful to Senator Mushahid Hussain Sahab for coming up once again, and other very impressive idea of Green CPEC Alliance. And I would ask him to tell us about what it is and how it can help in green energy projects and meeting the energy crisis. And then I would request a comprehensive PPT presentation on Pakistan energy crisis, challenges and opportunities. And it would be done by Qaiser Aijaz Sahab, who is environment and energy expert, and we will be listening to him. Then it would be an open forum for all to discuss these issues: green financing, to green the solar energy and the wind energy, and like whatever you like to discuss, the challenges of our energy crisis. Senator Mushahid Hussain Sahab, you are unmuted, and please go ahead and tell us like how a green CPEC Alliance would help us in implementation of projects in more greener and cleaner way, and how these projects will be addressing the challenge of energy crisis in Pakistan. Your opening statement, sir.
Thank you very much, Munir Saab, and Assalamu alaikum, and good afternoon to all the guests who are on today's platform. And I would welcome them on this important day, which was also the 50th anniversary of the first conference on the environment, which was held in Stockholm 50 years ago. So we are having this meeting, a webinar on a very historic day. This is the World Environment Day today. And I'm glad that there is this focus on both development and environment, because the two have to go hand in hand. Development also is a human right, the right to pursue a better life through development, which leads to progress, industrialization, generation of jobs, building up of the country's infrastructure, and so forth. And then at the same time, there is the right to a clean and green environment, which is important for the quality of life, which is important for the sustenance of human civilization as we have known it for the last millennia. So it is in this context that we have in Pakistan the most important developmental project in our history, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, because it is so large, it is so extensive, it is so multifaceted, it has so many dimensions, and this country has not seen this kind of initiative launched And the first phase of CPEC has already been completed, focusing on infrastructure and energy. Now we are coming to the second phase. And here we felt the need that the issue of climate change and greening of CPEC should also be paramount along with the development, because the first phase has been successful in ensuring that CPEC has delivered on the early harvest projects. And when we talk of CPEC, as you know, CPEC is the linchpin, is the centerpiece of the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, launched by China in 2013. And that is also involving 144 countries, 32 international organizations. It includes Asia, Middle East, Africa, Europe, Latin America, knitting and weaving together connectivity through ports, pipelines, roads, railways, energy, economy. So it is in this context, I would like to first mention also that China has also taken major initiatives which have an impact on Pakistan. The second Belt and Road Forum was initiated in Beijing. The first was in 2017. The second one was in April 2019, which I also attended. I attended the first one also. And after that, there has been no forum because COVID took over. In that, the theme given by President Xi Jinping was green development. And an international green development coalition was also announced with about 30 environmental ministers members of that as a voluntary coalition of governments, civil society, environmental groups, and so forth. And then last year, China announced that they will no more be funding coal-fired power plants outside their country. So that also is a very positive initiative. And as you know, China is sticking by its commitments, which it made in Paris and which it has made last year in COP26 at Glasgow, the two major environmental conferences in the last 5-6 years. Unlike the US, which withdrew from both, by the way. And now it has come back since Biden took over. So in that context, China is today leading also, not just in climate change, but also in the production of, for example, Munir sir mentioned green development and green finance, green transportation, electric vehicles, clean energy would be driving those electric vehicles. And China is a leader in that. And you could have seen the tweet of Elon Musk of Tesla, who is also a large producer of electric vehicles in America, that he mentioned China is leading in that. So that context is extremely important. And secondly, for us in Pakistan and in the region where we belong, South Asia, climate change has become a very major issue. Our contribution to climate change is less than 1%, but we are among the top 5-7 countries which are having to face the consequences of climate change. There have been 150 plus freak weather incidents in Pakistan in the last 15 to 20 years. Flash floods, avalanches, glacier melting, forest fires. And talking of floods, you remember in 2011 and 2012, 20% of Pakistan was underwater in 2 provinces, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Sindh. And 10% of our population was displaced. So this is huge, the human cost of that. And I'm also chairman of the Senate Defense Committee, and we in the committee said that national security can no longer be defined in terms of military might alone. It has to include a focus on human security, protection of the lives and livelihoods of the people, the human beings. So that includes climate change, health, coronavirus pandemic is before you also, population planning, food security, water scarcity. So these are issues of human security. And in that, climate change is paramount because climate change affects every aspect. And it is in this context, as chairman of the Climate Change Subcommittee, we launched the initiative in 2014, first public hearings in the Pakistan Parliament on climate change and environment. We launched a media manual also. And there was no funding by the parliament or the government. So we took, there was a grant given by a German foundation. And from that, we produced the media manual and held those hearings. And those hearings for the first time focused on the issue, not just parliamentarians, but the public at large, NGOs, civil society organizations, environmental groups, and even the industrial groups, because they have also a stakeholder, and we have to involve them also. So it is in this context we set the ball rolling, and we gave the notion of clean and green Islamabad, which culminated in August 2019 in the ban in Islamabad of the use of single-use plastics. Of course, that ban was enforced for a while, but then COVID took over, and then they said that we have difficulties in imposing that ban. But the ban started with Hunza, and then Islamabad was the second city where it was imposed. So in this context, when we talk of CPEC, because CPEC is an important guarantor for Pakistan's future, we have to align CPEC with the climate change goals, especially those which have been enshrined, not just by the International Green Development Coalition, but also by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, as well as what has been announced at COP26, the environmental conference in Glasgow, last November, which I had the privilege of also attending. And in that context, we feel that we have also given commitments that by 2030, 30% of Pakistan's energy would be renewables. And that is an important element because we have huge hydro capacity. We have wind corridors, especially in Sindh and Balochistan. And we have, of course, solar energy, which is unlimited. So we have to harness that. And this has to be done through smart technology. But above all, there has to be a political will because we are reliant on fossil fuels. In large part is also driven by a very powerful petroleum lobby, which seeks huge profits because of imported oil. But now with this economic crisis, with this energy crisis, with the shortage of foreign exchange, we are now forced to shift gears on that. Coming to development of CPEC in Pakistan, I'd just like to add that recently we had, Munir sir mentioned the launching of the international, of the greening of the CPEC coalition, Green CPEC Coalition and Alliance. But we also had the CPEC Media Forum where we had journalists from China and also there are companies which are investing in Pakistan, and there are 120 different projects from Chinese companies in Pakistan, not just CPEC, but otherwise also. And China is the biggest investor in Pakistan today, having invested about $25.6 billion in the last 6-7 years, generating 75,000 jobs, promoting our last year the growth was almost 6% thanks to CPEC. What is important now is that we have to take initiatives to ensure that this progress is sustained. And what are the conditions of that? Number one, we have to provide security for not just the Chinese investors, for all investors. So that is the responsibility of the Pakistani state. And the kinds of acts of terrorism and violence against foreign investors, they have to cease, they have to end. Secondly, there has to be an uninterrupted, sustained supply of electricity, of energy, so that these projects can really take off. Third, there has to be a slashing of the bureaucratic red tape. You will be shocked to know, ladies and gentlemen, there are about 37 different NOCs, rules, regulations, permissions required if you want to invest in Pakistan and launch a project. Federal government, provincial governments, local government, various ministries. So this has to become a genuinely one window operation. And then we have to ensure that the policies that are announced, they have to be consistent, especially policies regarding tariffs, policies regarding foreign investors. They cannot be changed just at the whim of somebody in the ministry or the change of government or a change of personnel. The policy has to be having that kind of consistency. Finally, I like to say, I have been to two places which are in our neighborhood. One is China, one is UAE. I went to China, I had dinner with the mayor of Shanghai. And I asked him how long, if I want to establish a company in China, how long? I said, hypothetically. He said, you will get a permission for the company, provided your papers are complete, within 48 hours, Shanghai. I went to UAE, asked the same question. They said within 24 hours. Now, these are countries which have made progress after we have made progress. We were one of the leading Asian countries in development 30, 40 years ago. And today we are lagging behind. So there are reasons, and those reasons are man-made. And we have to look inwards. And if we have to move forward, we have to take some tough decisions. And the opportunity is there, and ensure that development and what President Xi Jinping called in a speech in the Belt and Road Forum in April 2019, ecological civilization. They have to go together. So let's promote the ecological civilization, let's promote development, and it has to be green development, inshallah. And I thank Munir Saab, as always, for taking good initiatives. Munir Saab, they say the highest paid person in Hollywood is the idea man. He gives an idea and the movie is a big success. You've always been a great idea man, but you're also a man of action. So the time has come to do both. Give good ideas and implement those with doable actions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Mushahid Hussain Sayyid, for your opening statement. I just have one question. Somewhere in March 2018, I wrote about independent organization to handle all the projects. You just mentioned one window. And CPEC authority was formed afterwards in the previous regime, somewhere in with the ordinance. They issued an ordinance, and now the CPEC authority is, they have concluded. I don't know. Now a planning commission will also be taking care of the CPEC. So what is your take on it? Like CPEC authority was not complying with the one window operation, or like because
I think CPEC authority was a good idea, but it became victim to other kind of issues, because the chairman of the CPEC authority became controversial, and then he had to be removed, and the change of personnel was there. Talking of CPEC authority, I would like to say that the last chairman of the CPEC authority, Mr. Khalid Mansoor, who came from the private sector in Karachi, was a good chairman and a successful head of the CPEC authority, because he came from the private sector. He had worked with the Chinese companies. He was the CEO of Hub, and he had done a lot of good work. So I think that institution building is linked with having good leadership of professional individuals. And I'm sorry to see him go, but right now things are in limbo. We are not sure whether the CPEC authority has been suspended, or is in limbo, or is going to exist or not continue. But whatever name you give it, there has to be some mechanism of a one window operation. Because currently we have the Planning Commission, we have the Ministry of Planning, we have the CPEC authority, then the Prime Minister has been meeting them directly also. So then I think that there was talk of Minister for CPEC being appointed. So I think that we need clarity in that. Okay. And it has to be tuck, tuck, tuck. There is no rocket science, Munir Saab. It's doable. UAE can do it, China can do it, other countries can do it. Why can't we?
Yes, you are right, sir. Still, we are in the doldrums if we need to have a CPEC authority with some corporate person heading it or not. I don't know, but let's see. Thank you so much, sir. Now I would request Qaiser Aijaz Saab to make presentation on Pakistan energy crisis, challenges and opportunities. Please go ahead, Qaiser Aijaz Saab.
Okay, Munir Saab, I understand that my sort of cameo has already been shared with the participants, and so that yes. I have not to sort of introduce myself and spend time on that, and straight away get on with my presentation.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Respected Senator Mushahid Hussain Sayyed, Munir Ahmed Saab, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, and very good afternoon to you all. Before I get on with my keynote speech, I would like to thank Senator Mushahid Hussain for having provided me this great opportunity to share my views, experiences, observations, and some of the hard facts and ground realities relating to energy crisis that country has been facing over past many decades with you all in capacity of keynote speaker. Thank you, Mushahid sir. Since I have been associated with the energy sector for past 40 years, in various capacities, my worries and concerns are far more serious and different than a common man may have, or a person who has not been associated with this energy sector. Ladies and gentlemen, if we look at the definition of word crisis, it means a time when a time of intense difficulty or danger, or a time when difficult or important decisions must be made, or a turning point of a disease where an important change takes place, indicating either recovery or death. So in my opinion, if it was a crisis-like situation, it would have been resolved and settled and sorted out long back, at least by any one of the regimes over past 75 years. Therefore, the energy crisis is no more a crisis and has converted itself into a chronic disease which requires to be dealt with accordingly. So in this context and backdrop, I have prepared my keynote speech where I would like to share with you all as to what happened from inception and how Pakistan started its journey, rather a roller coaster journey from scratch to development, progress, stability to the status of nuclear state. Where we defaulted, what went wrong, and how we together and jointly can fix the problem, particularly with the reference to CPEC projects, where we as a nation has a huge responsibility towards completing them timely and efficiently. And Mushahid Saab has very well explained and given a detailed background. This is a huge challenge for all of us. So with this, I would like to complete my presentation in next 20 minutes, which is allotted time. And after that, I look forward to some interactive sort of session after this presentation. So
Qaiser Saab, sorry to interrupt you, sir. If you like to change your slides as well.
Okay. Let me see if I can do it, because I have for the very first time using this. So this was the preamble I just covered.
Okay.
So I would now move on to, I will skip challenges because purposely I will skip them, because I would first sort of try to share with you all the historical events from inception. And during this course, we created these challenges for ourselves. So I'll just discuss them after the historical events and what went wrong. So just bear with me on this. So coming back to historical events right after independence. Soon after independence in 1947, first 5-year plan was put out by Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan in 1950, and which was aimed at speedy industrialization with major focus on heavy industry and basic infrastructure. And in 1955, Pakistan was blessed with sui gas reserves for next 50 years. And I consider that a gift from God for this newly born nation. And I will dwell on that in a later part of my presentation, that how we missed this point. Energy crisis of 1970s was averted due to timely actions by those regimes, where 2 major hydro projects, including Bangla Dam and Tarbila dams, were completed in 1967 and 1976 respectively. While Pakistan's steel mills project was formalized in 1973 and its production came I think in the early 80s or mid 80s. A total of 8 5-year plans were issued from 1950 until 1999 and were subsequently replaced with medium-term development framework during Bashir's regime. So this was basically the first intervention in our 5-year plan. And I would also dwell this issue later on during our interactive session, where after this planning commission role was sort of disappearing, and we suffered a lot because of this intervention. So, and then from 1989 to 2012, we all witnessed a boom in oil and gas exploration and production. And at that point in time, we took a sigh of relief that from now onwards, Pakistan would take off. But I do not know what happened. What went wrong that Pakistan today is faced with worst form of energy crisis, particularly with CPEC projects are in progress and require a sustainable energy source for their successful implementation and operation. So now I would sort of share with you what wrongs we committed during this course of journey. Unfortunately, none of 5-year plan MTDFs gave a concrete energy policy vis-a-vis infrastructure and industrialization goals, because each program should come up with a complete life cycle of the project. So this energy model was missing. Different models, including nationalization, denationalization, privatization, were experimented to address countries' development needs since inception to date, while Pakistan required indigenous policies and programs for exploiting immense energy and human resource potential within the country. Then we missed out a great opportunity for expanding Pakistan industrial base during the period 1955 to 2010. And that is a time when Pakistan major gas reserves were wasted. And I shared with Mushahid earlier on that, I mean, at that time, the natural gas was provided to domestic sector ruthlessly and so cheaply that one would want to save a matchstick and let the gas burner or heater on for the day. So this is what we did with our industry. And energy crisis were dealt with ad hocism, where energy issues were addressed on as and when required basis. As a result, independent power plants were approved at 25% IRR, which was a main issue at that time, and it was discussed at all levels and forums. And now we know that why this 24 IRR was sort of kept in the agreements, just because of the fact that your country risk is very, very high. And we will discuss it later. Energy studies in 2005 and 6 presented a detailed roadmap to plug the energy gap required to maintain GDP growth at 6% for next 20 years from 2006 to 2025. This was another sort of era or a time period where we were hoping that now everything is hunky-dory, and now we just have to manage all these, what we have sort of set for meeting the energy gaps. But unfortunately, all regimes failed to materialize what we sort of had set for this energy plan, where Iran pipeline gas project was not materialized. Timely import of
Qaiser Saab, can I interrupt you? You are not changing your slides.
Okay.
Please, thank you. Yeah, that's good.
I think now I'm on this slide. Huh?
Okay, okay, fine.
Okay. So despite, all efforts, we failed to sort of fulfill the gaps, energy gaps, and reach to this stage.
सर आपकी yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, upgradation and value addition in petroleum oil refining has been outstanding since long, where oil refinery policy 2021 is yet to be implemented. An integrated approach and methodology to address the issue of energy crisis facing the country for decades has been missing throughout. And this is the point I would like to stress upon, that so far we have been addressing or trying to address our energy issues without an integrated energy model. But as Mushahid said, that we need to have a integrated approach to deal with these CPEC projects, because I mean, once these projects are on, we have to have a sustainable energy source for these projects. And when we talk of greening the projects, costs are going to be high for greening the projects. So we have to be very, very, I mean, proactive in having energy-based energy mix, which is economically feasible for all these projects. So despite effort, I mean, we could not materialize hydrocracker unit for the refineries. And hydrocracker unit, I mean, all people who are associated with the refining, petroleum refining, energy sector know the importance of hydrocracker. That would have gone a long way towards value addition in petroleum products and reducing Pakistan import bills significantly. Likewise, timely implementation of implementation of identified hydro projects was not expedited. When this park and WAPDA had identified numerous hydropower projects to the order of 30,000 megawatt to 50,000 megawatt, which if implemented timely would have contributed significantly in bringing down the cost of electricity manifold. Due to lack of interest from all stakeholders, no significant progress and development of renewable energy sources, including wind energy, solar power plants, and biogas was witnessed, and that was basically due to the absence of enabling environment and incentives for local and foreign investment for renewable energy projects. So these were the wrongs, and which sort of created the challenge for ourselves. And these challenges were mainly a 220 million population bomb. I mean, this is a challenge in itself. Non-availability of adequate indigenous energy resources, depleting oil and gas fields, no major oil and gas discovery for past 2 decades, increased energy prices in the international market, COVID-19 pandemic aftershocks, political and economic challenges within the country, and high country risk and security factors. So these are the challenges, and now these challenges can be converted into opportunities. And here I would like to quote Winston Churchill quote, that never let a good crisis go waste. So I mean, this is the time when we all sit together and think about converting all these challenges into opportunities. So, I mean, because I have been associated with oil and gas companies and worked very closely with the Ministry of Petroleum and up to Secretary Petroleums and DG Oil, DG Gas, and DG Petroleum Concessions. And my sort of view is that state-owned oil and gas companies be allowed to work independently, and constitution of a federal body comprising of highly qualified professionals for selection of CEOs, MPs, and board members of the state-owned enterprises should be formed. So it is very important, because unless and until these companies are allowed independently, and MDs or CEOs are allowed to take forward the company, it has to be dissociated or should be out of influence of ministry because their performance have been impacted, and whatever they earn, their earnings are used in meeting day-to-day, countries' affairs or social action programs, and they are not left with enough funds for carrying out their own exploration programs. So this is one suggestion that this should be looked at. Yes. Then provision of constitutional cover. Provision of constitutional cover for energy policy framework and approve projects for continuity regardless of regime expiry. This is very important for the continuity. Mushahid Saab has already dwelled on this, and there is no requirement of further explaining this point. Then comes the Petronas model is suggested to be studied for adopting an integrated approach for addressing energy issues, where upstream oil and gas exploration production, midstream and petroleum oil refineries, and downstream oil storages, pipeline transmission, and distribution networks are managed under one umbrella. To this end, I would like to share with you all that Petronas was established in 1974, right out 14 years after OGDCL. And Petronas started off with few storage tanks and petrol pump stations. And see the role of Petronas today in Malaysian economy and where OGDCL now. So we really have to think that which model we want to adopt if we are really serious in putting our house in order, or at least house of energy in order. Development and so I have talked about the integrated approach and methodology to this issue. Conducting roundtable conferences involving energy experts, NGOs, energy consulting companies for developing a strategy to deal with prevalent energy crisis and special reference to smooth and speedy implementation. The role of roundtable conference has been significant. I may share with you that I worked very closely with Dr. Tariq Badouri during the period 1994 to 1999, where we completed a sustainable development project for industry. It was a Swiss-funded project. And the outcome of that project was that we were able to put recommendations for environmental act, and it was successfully passed by that regime. So and in that period, we must have conducted about in 4 or 5 years more than 50 to 70 roundtable conferences and with all stakeholders. Then comes the rationalization of gas tariffs for domestic, commercial, and industrial sectors, revitalizing the work on renewable energy sources, formalization of long-term LNG sale and purchase agreements. Now, coming to this sale LNG agreements, I would just quote an example of China. China so far has secured it up to 2035 and has signed about more than 25 LNG agreements. So, this is the approach the countries take to secure their energy requirements for future development. So, and I am sorry to say that whenever we start to take any initiative in this regard, somehow these initiatives are killed through media and through judiciary, and the people who really do not know about anything and the impacts. So I think there is a need that a body should be formed to protect all such kind of measures, and we should sort of work on this. Enhancement of storages and day cover for crude oil and fuel products. Accelerating oil and gas exploration activities in Balochistan. Balochistan so far has not been explored fully, and I do not know why. Still juicy blocks are still under force majeure. I mean, why regimes do not pursue the establishment army and make help lift the force majeure so that exploration work should be started. So this is my strong recommendation that we should accelerate our exploration efforts in Balochistan. Capacity building and strengthening of Directorate General of Petroleum Concession. This is a very important point, because Director General Directorate Office doesn't have the capacity to cope with so much of work, where they have to assist the block for bidding, and they are short of human resource, and they have to sort of borrow technical staff from OGDCL and PPL for evaluation of the blocks. So this is a major sort of issue that regulator doesn't have the capacity to manage and regulate the oil and gas sector. So this was one of the recommendations. Petroleum policy requires review in terms of incentives for local and foreign oil and gas exploration and production companies. I mean, it's a sad story that major foreign companies left Pakistan because of these lack of incentives. We did formulate policies which had incentives, but not to the extent. And as Mushahid Sahab also pointed out in his preamble, that difficulties were more for a foreign company, and eventually they sort of decided to leave. And one example I can quote you, that attitude also works, has a significant impact, and bureaucracy need to sort of understand their attitude towards foreign investor, how they should be treated. I mean, we take pride in making a CEO of foreign company sit in the waiting lounge for about 30 to 40 minutes. So, if this is the, approach, then we should not expect that any foreign sort of company would love to stay and work for the development of the country. So these mindset should be changed. Revisit CPEC's coal-based power projects post-Glasgow summit on climate change, with the aim to utilize this huge energy reserves without compromising on environmental protection treaties where Pakistan is a signatory. So this is, again, an important issue, because now all the CPEC projects are at a drawing board stage. We should revisit all these projects, and we should also revisit our coal potential, how to utilize it, so that this huge resource should not go waste. And discussions and technical sessions should be undertaken forthwith, that how this huge reserve of coal would be utilized, because presently we are operating all these coal power plants on based on imported coal. And last is the human resource development. We have to have this development program ASAP. We have to train our people to match the requirements of the foreign investors, Chinese. I have worked with Chinese companies very closely, and the Oxen Group, because at my last assignment, we had a joint venture with Oxen, I learned that they simply do not want Pakistani contractors because we waste a lot of time. And that is why they had initially planned to undertake all these projects where they would bring in their own construction teams. So on long-term basis, if we want that that our companies should also be competitive and be undertaking all these construction works for CPEC project, our human resource development is essential. Our attitudes are need to be corrected. If I mean, we have to pray and go for prayers, then we have to reduce the time of prayer and sort of come up with the expectation of our Chinese counterparts. So in this regard, human resource development is an area where we, I mean, give a lot of consideration at this stage. So all these are the what to do next. And with this, I would open the floor for sort of question answer session. Yeah, discussion.
Okay, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. A very comprehensive presentation, Qaiser Aijaz sahab. I must say, you have included every aspect that we are or we shall be looking for in our future interventions and taking care of what has happened in the past. And as you mentioned that about Petronas and OMV are the two companies. They were not given right way of exploration in Pakistan, and they were blackmailed by the interior provincial goons, I must say, or politicians. And finally, after spending a lot of time in Pakistan, they went away. And that is very unfortunate. Now, can you stop sharing screen, sir? Aijaz sahab? Qaiser Aijaz sahab.
Please.
Please stop sharing your screen so that I could go to other participants for discussion. Okay, now the forum is open, and anyone who like to talk about it, offer comment or question, or any clarity you want on it, please raise your hand. Mushahid Hussain Sayyid Saab, you are missing. We miss you.
You can't see me?
I can't see you, sir. No, I can't see you, sir.
Really?
Okay, okay, yes. If you are there, then definitely I can ask you one question. You talked about Mushahid Hussain Sayyid Sahab about human security as well. And we are spending a lot of money on fossil fuels. And you know, fossil fuels are the main reasons for climate change and global warming and climate changes. Can't we reduce the consumption of fossil fuels and invest more on solar? For example, some solar panel on every household, and instead of investing that much money on the import or exploration and such kind, I think a couple of days when like you had your seminar at Serena, they said like there is 2-3 very large product manufacturing companies of solar panels, and they are supplying to entire world. And I think they can help in like mainstreaming or like supplying to solar panels to every household. And there should be, because they are quite expensive, and government should take and the banks should, and state bank should give certain guidelines to support solar panels for every household. Do you think, is it possible?
Thank you, Munir sahab, and thank you, Qaiser Aijaz sahab, for a very detailed presentation. I fully support and agree with that. If you go to some of the very less developed areas of Pakistan, even in neighboring Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in certain parts of Balochistan, people have already started this, I would say, movement to have solar panels, solarized tube wells in their own backyard. They go from the market and it's on a self-help basis. You see, the problem is that, as I mentioned, we have a vested interest. The petroleum lobby is very strong. If you import $20 billion worth of fossil fuels every year, so people make money, there are vested interests developed. There has to be a strong political will to wean the country away from this dirty and expensive form of energy through policies that encourage solar panels, maybe duty-free access, that encourage electric vehicles, that encourage also, one of the biggest impediments is this white elephant called WAPDA. It's become a total white elephant. They control everything, load shedding, everything, and discos and so forth. So it's a very complicated structure we have created. The world is heading towards decentralization. It should not be controlled by one central headquarters that how much electricity you will get. They can switch on and switch off, not because of economic reasons, but for their own reasons. So I think there has to be a change in mindset and a change in direction. And this is the need of the hour. Yesterday, I was talking to the Danish ambassador at one of the receptions, and they're relying on wind energy. Other countries, China is relying on solar energy also, apart from other forms of energy. And we have so much of these renewables. It's almost limitless possibilities. So we have to take that. So Munir Sahab, change of mindset, political will to take it forward, and user-friendly policies, and stop relying on these white elephants like huge WAPDA or the government bureaucracies. Because the more you involve the government in energy, the more corruption there will be, the more incompetence there will be. I'll just give you one figure before I close. Every day, Pakistan loses over 1 billion rupees because of line losses, because of corruption, because of lost electricity. Even the transmission lines are so poor. So, you know, we are living as if in the 18th century and this is the 21st century, and solar is the need of the hour, and let people use the solar panels, make them cheap, make them easily accessible. Okay. That is the need of the hour, and that should be the recommendation from today's webinar, basically. A shift in focus and direction.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Iftikhar Sahab, please ask your question, or शोर आ रहा है आपकी तरफ से.
I'm a little bit worried about what is the we have to see whether we have to produce sugarcane, sugar, or go for ethanol. It is surprising to see that in 1970s, Planning Commission was initiating such a project, but due to political reason, that idea was scrapped out. One thing, it is very disturbing for everyone. Why we are not going for ethanol? Why we are going for sugar? We have to see whether the future of Pakistan lies with the sugar or ethanol. First point. Second point, I'm asking about from Qaiser Aijaz sahab. It was a wise idea to go for CNG or use for industrial use. Some kind of
yeah. Should I answer this?
Please, Qaiser Aijaz sahab.
Okay. First, मुनीर साहब, मैं आपके सवाल का जवाब दे दूं सोलर का, और मुशाहिद साहब ने भी सोलर का कहा है. देखिए, सोलर प्रोजेक्ट्स के अंदर there is no harm in sort of going for solar projects, and लेकिन मेरा what I am sort of looking at is that all these should be coming out of that energy model. It should be in an organized manner. अगर हम इसी तरह से जाएं, जो अब उसका जवाब इनको भी मिल जाएगा. सॉरी, आपका नाम क्या था? मुझे रजिस्टर नहीं हुआ.
इफ्तिखार साहब.
इफ्तिखार साहब की जो बात की CNG की, अगर आप देखें इस वक्त जो सोलर की को हम जिस तरह से लगा रहे हैं और एक पैनिकी स्टेज आई हुई है कि हम सोलर पे चले जाएं, यही केस था सीएनजी का। लोग पैनिकी हो गए, एक आपको अच्छा रिसोर्स आपने सीएनजी की फॉर्म में दे के एक जहां पे आप अपनी इंडस्ट्री को आप लगा सकते थे, आपने वो सारा एग्जॉस्ट की फॉर्म में उड़ा दिया। ठीक है, तो ये वाली जो चीजें हैं, हमें अपना एक लाइफस्टाइल भी चेंज करना पड़ेगा। देखिए, अगर आप ये कह रहे हैं कि आप पेट्रोल और इसकी प्राइसेस ज्यादा हैं, तो आपको एक इक्विवेलेंट मास ट्रांजिट लोगों को देना पड़ेगा, ताकि एक आदमी कहे कि मैं अपनी साइकिल पे जाऊंगा, आपको वहां पे मेट्रो पे मैं अपनी साइकिल खड़ी करूंगा, लॉक लगाऊंगा और शाम को आऊंगा तो मेरी साइकिल वहीं पे होगी और मैं उससे आगे चला जाऊंगा। तो अगर आप उनको कोई इक्विवेलेंट एक ऑल्टरनेट नहीं देते, इकोनॉमिकली फिजिबल, तो ये तमाम चीजें जो है आप हे वायर स्टाइल में करेंगे तो कभी भी आप अपने उस अचीव नहीं करेंगे मेजर ऑब्जेक्टिव को। आप चाहे सोलर करें, चाहे आप सीएनजी लगाएं, चाहे आप क्रूड ऑयल करें, आपको ये देखना ये है कि वो एनर्जी मॉडल में से निकल रहा है या नहीं। अगर आपका एनर्जी मॉडल में से वो चीजें निकल रही हैं, अब जैसे मैं आपको बताता हूँ, ये जो बायोगैस का प्रोजेक्ट हमारे यहाँ फेल हो गया, व्हाई इट इज अ सक्सेस इन चाइना। अभी तक आप जाके देखें तो वो 2030 तक अपने बायोगैस प्लांट्स को डाइजेस्टर्स बढ़ा रहे हैं, और जो ये कहा जा रहा है कि जी उसमें से मीथेन इमिशंस होती हैं, ये बायोगैस प्लांट्स उन्हीं मीथेन से वो पावर जनरेट करते हैं, और वहां की जितनी पावर रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं उस एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर की, वो लोकल एक जो उन्होंने बायोगैस प्लांट लगाया हुआ है वहां से हो जाती है। तो इफ्तिखार साहब का भी जवाब यही है कि सीएनजी वाज नॉट अ गुड डिसीजन, और इसी तरह से अगर हम हेवार तरीके से ये चीजों को करेंगे तो ये हम जाके एंड में हम उसकी रिस्क असेसमेंट तो करते नहीं है। हमारे यहाँ कोई भी प्रोजेक्ट शुरू होता है, हम उसकी रिस्क असेसमेंट उसके साथ नहीं करते, हालांकि मॉडर्न प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट के अंदर रिस्क असेसमेंट प्रोजेक्ट रिस्क असेसमेंट इज ए वेरी एसेंशियल एलिमेंट। यही चीजें मैं ये चाह रहा था कि हमारे सीपेक के प्रोजेक्ट के अंदर भी हम डालें, चेक एंड बैलेंसेस डालें, ड्राइंग बोर्ड पे जाएं, प्लानिंग स्टेज पे जाएं और वहां पे इन चीजों को स्क्रूटनाइज करने के लिए चलें। देखिए, अगर हम इस तरह से नहीं करेंगे तो हमारे इश्यूज जो हैं वो और ज्यादा एम्पलीफाई होकर हमारे सामने आएंगे। सो इफ्तिखार साहब, आई डू नॉट नो इफ यू आर sort of satisfied with my reply or not.
Okay, thank you. Mushahid sahab, would you like to add something to the questions that Iftikhar sahab asked?
I'd just like to make a comment on the response given by Qaiser Saab, that yes, I agree that solar or any other energy mix should be part of a broader whole of energy approach, not a piecemeal compartmentalized approach. उन्होंने बात की है मास ट्रांजिट की भी, उन्होंने बात की है एनर्जी मिक्स की भी, और उनको एक नेशनल पॉलिसी की तीर होनी चाहिए, जिसे हम कहते हैं ना उर्दू में डंग टपाऊ नहीं होना चाहिए कि ये किधर कर लें फिर उसके पीछे रख जाए, सीएनजी की चक्कर चला, फिर सीएनजी स्टेशन बंद हो गए, फिर यू नो वो दैट इज एडॉकिज्म, मोमेंट टू मोमेंट अप्रोच, एंड दैट बिकम्स अ फ्री फॉर ऑल. So there I agree that it has to be a comprehensive national approach to energy, which includes changes in lifestyles, but as I said earlier, changes in mindset and policies that do not promote the vested interest or specific cartels, but also promote the welfare of the people and the nation.
Thank you. Salman sahab, please ask your question.
सागम सर, थैंक यू कि आपने बहुत अच्छा एक टॉपिक आज का चूज़ किया है. सर, मैं बहुत यंग हूँ, आप सब माशाल्लाह बहुत सीनियर्स हैं, बहुत हाईली एजुकेटेड हैं. आई एम अ स्टूडेंट, मतलब वैसे नहीं आई एम अ प्रोफेशनल, बट आई एम अ स्टूडेंट आप लोगों के कंपैरिजन में. सर, मैं सिंपल सी ये बात करना चाहूँगा. 2008 में आईकैप में एक सेशन हुआ और वहाँ पर ये जो थर कोल एंड एवरीथिंग इसके बारे में बात हो रही थी, हाइड्रोकार्बन पावर्ड एनर्जी की. और मैं उस टाइम भी स्टूडेंट था. मैंने बोला था, मैंने सिर्फ ये सवाल पूछा था और उसमें गेस्ट जो है वो मुझसे नाराज़ हो गए थे. मैंने बोला था सर, 2008 में ही चाइना जब जा रहा था ओलंपिक्स के लिए तो उसके ऊपर ये पाबंदियां लग रही थी कि भाई आप हाइड्रोकार्बन से क्योंकि करते हो, क्लाइमेट को आप डैमेज करते हो. तो उन्होंने पूरे अपने शहर के शहर बंद किए थे इसकी वजह से. टेक्नोलॉजी का टाइम पीरियड है. हमने हाइड्रोकार्बन्स को बिल्कुल एंड में जाके टैप करने की कोशिश की है जब उसका टाइम ड्यूरेशन एंड पे जा रहा है. सिमिलरली सोलर का अभी टाइम पीरियड मिड से ज्यादा पहुंच चुका है. क्यों? क्योंकि सोलर की जो मेरी छोटी सी रिसर्च है, चाइना की कंबोडिया में जो फैक्ट्रीज हैं उसके पीछे दूसरे जो इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं वो लग गए हैं कि जी वहाँ पर जो सोलर पैनल्स की प्रोडक्शन है वो इन्वायरमेंटली हैजर्ड है। तो सर एक हर टेक्नोलॉजी का टाइम पीरियड है, उसको जितनी जल्दी अडॉप्ट करके हम डिप्लॉय कर दें तो शायद हम कुछ पावर उससे चीज हासिल कर लेंगे, अदरवाइज हम फिर लूज कर जाएंगे। अभी हमारे पास फॉरेन एक्सचेंज नहीं है टू इम्पोर्ट इतनी सारे सोलर को, और लेकिन जब हम उसको लोकली मैन्युफैक्चर करने की बात आएगी फिर हम एक नए डिलेमा में फंसे हुए होंगे कि हम इन्वायरमेंटली। तो सर ये जो चीजें हैं ये सारी इंटरलिंक्ड हैं, तो हम उसको एक ब्रॉडर पर्सपेक्टिव से देखना चाहिए। मैंने MIT का एक सस्टेनेबल इनिशिएटिव है उसके साथ थोड़ा सा एसोसिएट हूँ आजकल, और उसमें हमने ये चीज़ देखी है सर कि ये सारे वेरिएबल्स आपस में इतने इंटरलिंक्ड हैं कि हम हर किसी को हल्का से भी छेड़ते हैं ना सर, कि अगर हम इलेक्ट्रिफिकेशन की बात करें तो हमारी इकोनॉमी हिल जाती है, क्योंकि उसमें हमारे FDIs वगैरह चेंजेस आते हैं। इसी तरह अगर हम डिफॉरेस्टेशन और डिफॉरेस्टेशन के ऊपर काम करते हैं तो हमारे टेम्परेचर क्लाइमेट पे डिफरेंट इम्पैक्ट्स आते हैं। तो सर हम तो स्टूडेंट्स हैं, हम तो ये चाहते हैं कि हमारे सीनियर्स हैं वो एक ऐसा एक होलसम एक पॉलिसी लेके चलें ताकि जो आज की चीज़ है वो आज ही इम्प्लीमेंट हो जाए और फ्यूचर में जो है वो हमारे पास अच्छे रिजल्ट्स हों। थैंक यू सर।
ओके, थैंक यू वेरी मच। एनीवन एल्स?
मुशाहिद साहब जवाब दे रहे हैं इसका या मैं दूं?
आप दें जी।
अच्छा, बेटा सबसे पहले तो बात यह है कि अब हम लोग तो स्पेंट शेल्स हैं, हमारी सारी जो होप्स हैं वो यंगस्टर से हैं, यूथ से, और अल्लाह करे कि आप अपने करियर में एक्सेलेंस अचीव करें और आप को अल्लाह मियां मुख्तार बनाए और इस मुल्क के लिए कुछ करने की तौफीक अता फरमाए। बात जो आपने की है, अगर आप मेरी पूरी प्रेजेंटेशन देखें तो आपको मेरे अपने सवालों का जवाब मिल जाएगा कि हम हमेशा लेट हो गए। मुनीर नियाजी का जो शेर है वो एक गजल है कि हमेशा देर कर देता हूँ। तो ये बात आपकी बिल्कुल सही है कि हमने जब भी इनिशिएटिव लिए उस वक्त उस एनर्जी रिसोर्स को वर्ल्ड वाज सेइंग गुड बाय, तो हमारे साथ ये एक ट्रेजेडी तो रही है, लेकिन अभी भी हमारे पास एनवायरमेंटली वी स्टिल हैव दैट मच ऑफ गैप कि जब यूएस ने अपनी तरक्की कर ली, चाइना ने कर ली, तो वी शुड आल्सो हैव द राइट टू डेवलप एंड प्रोग्रेस। हम अपने इस एनवायरमेंटल गैप को यूटिलाइज करके हमारा जो कोल है इसको ग्रीनर टेक्नोलॉजी से हम इसको यूटिलाइज कर सकते हैं। और यही मेरा मैसेज है बार बार कि वी शुड रिविजिट आवर कोल प्रोजेक्ट्स, वी शुड रिविजिट आवर कोल क्वालिटी, और वी शुड फाइंड वेज टू मेक देम इफेक्टिव एनवायरमेंटली। तो यही मेरा जवाब है कि हम इसी तरह से आगे बढ़ सकते हैं।
ओके,
by the way, I just want to add that ये जो टेक्नोलॉजी जो इस्तेमाल हो रही है in the plants in Sahiwal and Port Qasim and also in Thar, it's super critical technology which is the maximum you can do for producing clean energy from coal-fired plants. So अगर आप कंपेयर भी करें, कई दर फोटोग्राफ्स भी आती हैं पोर्ट कासिम कोल प्लांट की और हमारे लोकल की, उनका धुआं काला होता है, इनका धुआं ऑलमोस्ट सफेद सा होता है। So there's a big difference. So within this टेक्नोलॉजी की सलमान साहब ने बात की थी, बिल्कुल सही कहा, टेक्नोलॉजी पूरी डेवलप हो रही है। उसी टेक्नोलॉजी के अंदर इवन कोल फायर्ड प्लांट्स में काफी हद तक क्लीन एनर्जी हो सकती है और हो रही है थ्रू द सुपर क्रिटिकल टेक्नोलॉजी, एंड दे आर रिसाइकलिंग सम ऑफ द वेस्ट आल्सो। सो ये जरा जो स्पेशली जो ऐश निकलता है, सो उस हवाले से दीज आर थिंग्स वी हैव बीन लेट इन द रेस, बट देयर आर दुरुस्त है, we have to catch up because हमारी अपनी नालायकी थी या फेलियर्स कह लें, and let's not repeat old mistakes, let's make new mistakes करने दिए।
That's great. ठीक है, अच्छी बात है। Anyone else? फरहत, उम्मे कुलसूम, राबिया, कोई खवातीन भी बोल लें, क्या कहती हैं? If you raise hand, I will unmute you. Meanwhile, I'll go to Iftikhar साहब once again. जी इफ्तिखार साहब।
अच्छा, इसमें एक इनसे शायद एक क्वेश्चन, असल बच्चे का जो क्वेश्चन था बिल्कुल सही था। जाहिर है स्टूडेंट हैं, थोड़ा सा बच्चों को मायूसी पाई जाती है। जो मेरा सोच है वो ये कि मायूसी की बुनियादी रीज़न ये कि हमारा एकेडेमिया जो स्टेट इंस्टीट्यूशन के साथ इंटरलिंक नहीं है। मिसाल तौर पे छोटी छोटी टेक्नोलॉजीज हम एम्प्लॉय कर सकते थे जो हमने नहीं की। मिसाल तौर पे कमोड में 2 आप वो बना दें, मलेशिया ने किया हुआ है, यूरिन को अलग कर दिया, स्टूम को अलग कर दिया, यूरिन से उन्होंने नाइट्रोजन की खाद बना दी और वो यूज कर लिया। क्या हम ये नहीं कर सकते थे कि कमोड के ऊपर एक वॉश बेसिन का टेक्नोलॉजी लें, वो पानी कमोड में यूज होता है, पानी वेस्ट नहीं जाता, वैसे तो वेस्ट जा रहा है। छोटी छोटी चीजें।
ओके, ठीक ठीक, थैंक यू इफ्तिखार साहब। उम्मे कुलसूम साहबा, प्लीज गो अहेड, अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ एंड या प्लीज गो अहेड।
जी बहुत शुक्रिया सर, थैंक यू सो मच, आपने मौका दिया। मैं कोई क्वेश्चन तो नहीं है, मैं सिर्फ कमेंट करना चाहूंगी और वो भी बहुत सिंपल सादा सा। सबसे पहले तो मैं मुशाहिद साहब से बहुत अरसे के बाद उनसे आज मुलाकात हुई मेरी, कोई 15-20 सालों के बाद, तो ये मेरे लिए बड़ी खुशी की बात थी। और दूसरी बात ये कि मेरा ये फर्स्ट चांस था कि मैं इतनी बड़े लोगों की मीटिंग को मैंने अटेंड किया। एक्चुअली मैं एक सोशल एक्टिविस्ट हूँ और मुजफ्फरगढ़ से मेरा ताल्लुक है। चीजें आज
सिग्नल्स का मसला है मैं उम्मे कुलसूम साहबा का।
मेरे लिए भी बहुत सारी चीजें थी जो मेरी लर्निंग के लिए थी। तो हम एक ग्रो ग्रीन नेटवर्क, जब एनर्जी की बात करते हैं तो इस वक्त भी हम इधर लाइट नहीं है सर, कुछ इश्यूज हैं और सेशन पे मैं सिर्फ कमेंट करना चाहूंगा और आप सबसे मुलाकात हुई। थैंक यू सो मच।
ओके,
थैंक यू कुलसूम साहिबा, इट्स अ प्लेजर टू सी यू अगेन। और मुजफ्फरगढ़ के लोगों में बड़ी जान है, बड़ा करंट है माशाल्लाह, ऐसी कोई बात नहीं है। बड़ा you have produced governors, chief ministers, foreign ministers from Muzaffargarh, Nawabzada Nasrullah Khan साहब, और बड़ी डोमिनेशन है आपकी, अभी भी बड़ा रोल है आपका माशाल्लाह। Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, then I will request Senator Mushahid Hussain Sayyid sahab for concluding remarks. Mushahid Hussain Sayyid.
Thank you very much जी। मैं भी बेसिकली तो मुनीर साहब, जब आपने इनिशिएटिव लिया और कैसे सबसे बात हुई, तो हमने कहा कि वी हैव कम हियर टू लिसन एंड लर्न। मकसद ये है कि जो मौजूदा मसाइल हैं, whether they are energy crisis, other issues, and energy has become one of the foremost crises in the country. We have to resolve them. हम माजी की बात छोड़ें, रोना धोना कि ये नहीं हुआ, वो नहीं हुआ, we know what happened, and that has happened in a lot of spheres. But now the time has come in the 21st century. As we speak, it's 2022 in the middle of the year. We have to take things forward. कोई रॉकेट साइंस नहीं है, हमारे सामने तरक्की कर रहे हैं मुल्क, हमारे सामने न्यू इनिशिएटिव्स आर बीइंग डन। सो इट इज इन दैट स्पिरिट दैट मुनीर साहब, आई कॉम्प्लीमेंट यू फॉर टेकिंग अ वेरी टाइमली इनिशिएटिव। और ये एक वन ऑफ इनिशिएटिव नहीं, इसको आगे लेके चलना चाहिए। आगे में कॉन्क्रीटली मेरा ख्याल में होना चाहिए कि 5-6 स्टेप्स जो पॉलिसी स्टेप्स है ना, उसको हम डिमार्केट कर दें, जिसमें हम डेवलपमेंट और क्लाइमेट चेंज को लिंक करके जो एनर्जी के हवाले से व्हाट कैन बी डन, व्हाट आर द डूएबल्स, 5-6 चीजें बात करें, बहुत खिलाड़ ना डालें, एंड आई थिंक दैट कैन बी अचीव्ड। और उसमें स्पेशली जो इतने लोग इधर मौजूद हैं, यू हैव अ गुड क्वालिटी people of a dozen or so who are still listening. I think that that can make a difference, because then you are educating people, people are learning, and we can take this message loud and clear. तो एक और सेशन भी आप इंशाल्लाह रखेंगे आफ्टर द बजट, और उसमें फिर ये जो स्पेसिफिक स्टेप्स हैं, एंड मे बी वी कैन इन्वॉल्व सम पॉलिसी मेकर आल्सो, को बुला के उनसे बात भी कर लेंगे, और जो कुछ कॉन्क्रीट सजेशंस भी आई हैं कैसर साहब की, कुछ इफ्तिखार साहब की और सलमान साहब की और दूसरे लोगों की भी, उनको भी आगे लेके चलेंगे। तो पर्पस इज टू लिसन एंड लर्न, to get the right lessons, and then to take steps to resolve the issues. Maksad problem solving approach है हमारी, सिर्फ गपशप नहीं है। Thank you very much Munir sir.
Sir, thank you.
Well done again. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Formally, I thank you, Senator Mushahid Hussain Sayyid Saab, for coming up and staying with us that long. And thank you so much, Qaiser Aijaz Saab, Energy and Environment Specialist, and Iftikhar Saab, Farhat, Sher Saab, Salman Saab, Ommer Kulsoom, and Rabia Sarwar, and Dani Saab, and Farhat Hussain Saab. ये फहद हुसैन साहब कौन से वाले हैं? ये एक तो बड़े मशहूर फहद हुसैन हैं, आप वो वाले फहद हुसैन तो नहीं है जो बड़े मशहूर हैं?
मेरे ख्याल में अनम्यूट करना पड़ेगा।
मैंने अनम्यूट कर रहा हूँ उनको,
अच्छा
क्योंकि एक बड़े मशहूर फहद हुसैन साहब हैं, लेकिन आई डोंट नो। ओके फाइन।
अच्छा मुनीर साहब, एक गुजारिश है, मैं सिर्फ अपना जो है खुदा हाफिज कहना चाहता हूँ एक शेर के साथ, क्योंकि हमारे यहाँ यंगस्टर्स भी हैं इसमें। ना शाखे गुल ही ऊंची है, न दीवारे चमन बुलबुल, तेरी हिम्मत की कोताही तेरी किस्मत की पस्ती है। तो
वाह
हमें अपने जो है
सर, शेर सिर्फ
हिम्मत।
जवानों के लिए नहीं होते, हमारे जैसे लोगों के लिए भी होते हैं। एंड थैंक यू सो मच। और इसके साथ ही इजाजत दीजिए। और मुशाहिद साहब,
थैंक यू सो
बिल्कुल
मच
हम
once again.
इन कपल ऑफ वीक्स वी कैन ऑर्गेनाइज webinar, as you have mentioned that what could be the 5-6 policy interventions that should be pursued nationally. इसके ऊपर सर आपसे डिस्कस करके और we can develop another webinar maybe like 3-4 weeks. Thank you so much sir. और इजाजत दीजिए जी, अल्लाह हाफिज।